and welcome to the Preakness edition of And They're Off. Well, we've survived another Kentucky Derby, which is not as easy as you might think. It is so rare that a consensus horse actually ends up winning the Derby with all that can and usually does go wrong. But Orb was a very popular winner in a lot of ways. Steve Haskin, you and I were standing on the rail, I'd say 50 yards from the finish line, and when Orb flew by us, it was definitely a wow moment. He was definitely the one horse running. In fact, I think I said wow about 5 times after he went past us. Steve, what'd you think?
Well, I guess the wow started after I said, "It's Orb."
Yes. The annual rite of me asking, who is that?
And I think I couldn't tell if you were saying wow or oh. One of the two. I don't recall any wows, but it was a wow moment. And in the heat of the moment, I will take your word for it that you did say wow over and over again, and it deserved a wow. And I hate to use the cliche that this was great for racing, but this was great for racing and breeding and the sport the way I remember it, just from a personal standpoint, when it truly was a sport run by sportsmen who put the thoroughbred first before anything else, before any kind of monetary gains. This is the way thoroughbreds were meant to grow up, and we need these kind of private stables, but we don't have them anymore, unfortunately. And listen, as somebody who's been around the game for a long time, I miss them. And it was great to see a stable like the Phipps family and the Jannies get together. You know, they used to be adversaries and partners for many, many generations. And to see them get together and win a race like this with a trainer who's been training for Phipps for 27 years, somebody that has been so well respected throughout the game for these many years. It was just great all around. Now, if only we can get Orb past the Preakness Stakes and trying for a potential Triple Crown sweep, I think it would be, quote, great for racing.
Yeah, let's take them one at a time here, but I think it was on everybody's mind with the way he won that race and the way people thought about him coming into the race that this is certainly a worthy candidate for the whole thing. Steve, we talked before the Derby on our last show about Todd Pletcher having 5 runners in the Derby. He, of course, has had 5 before. Zito has had 5. In those 3 occasions, none of them had the winner. Pletcher finished 3rd with Revolutionary this time. My question to you, Steve, is do you think trainers will absolutely refuse to run 5 horses in the Derby from now on? Even if they have, even if they have that many viable candidates?
Listen, if a trainer has 7, he'll run. Listen, Todd Pletcher could have had 7 if he didn't lose Shanghai Bobby and Violence. You know, and who knows? I mean, he might have run. Somebody else would have run Winning Cause. He could have had 8 in the Derby if he wanted to put the Lexington winner in there. Maybe, you know, listen, there's some trainers, you know, with these big mega stables, you know, their goal might be to actually try for half the field. It is possible. I don't begrudge him. He's got different owners. They all want to get to the Derby. There's nothing he can do about it.
Yeah.
This is what gets the owners involved in the game in the first place. What do they want to do? They want to win the Kentucky Derby. That's all. They get in the game. They put up the money. They said, I want to do one thing. I want to win the Kentucky Derby.
Steve, I'm kind of proud of myself here because I have done actual research and reporting on the following topic. We've gone back 25 years from Sunday Silence in 1989 through Orb. Here is the deal on what races produce Kentucky Derby winners. 6 Florida Derby winners have won the Kentucky Derby in the last 25 years. 2 Santa Anita Derby winners have won the Kentucky Derby in the last 25 years. 1 Spiral Stakes winner, 1 Arkansas Derby winner, 1 Louisiana Derby winner, an Illinois Derby winner, 1 Wood Memorial winner, 1 Bluegrass winner, and 1 Coolmore Lexington winner have won the Kentucky Derby in the last 25 years. Now, 3 Wood runner-ups have won the Kentucky Derby. 2 Santa Anita Derby runner-ups have won the Kentucky Derby. And 2 fourth-place finishers in the Santa Anita Derby have won the Kentucky Derby. Steve, I think the moral of the story is run in the Florida Derby if you want to win the Kentucky Derby and win it.
It would seem that way. Listen, I remember when people frowned upon running into the Derby with 5 weeks off. Yeah. Now it's obviously the way to go. Not only that, but we've had 2 Derby winners recently, Mind That Bird and Animal Kingdom, who won the Derby off 6-week layoffs. So obviously times have changed dramatically as far as preparation for the Kentucky Derby. You know, it used to be the Bluegrass Stakes, just to put a little history lesson here, the Bluegrass Stakes used to be 9 days before the Derby. And all the other major preps, the Wood Memorial, the Arkansas Derby, used to be 2 weeks. And the big one was the Santa Anita Derby when it was like 3 weeks before, and then it became 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But the Derby Trial was a major Derby prep. It was run 4 days before the Derby, and Calumet always used the Derby Trial as a prep and would run in the Derby Trial on Tuesday. Ben Jones would work him on Thursday and run him on Saturday. So obviously times have indeed changed. Now we're trying. Listen, we'll take charge. Actually, if you watch that race, we'll get to that later. But you look at the race he ran, and he looked like he was going to be right there with Orb until he got stopped in the race. He was coming into the Derby off a 7-week layoff.
Yeah. It should be noted, Steve, that 2 of those Florida Derby winners actually ran again before running in the Derby. Unbridled and Thunder Gulch. I think Unbridled ran second in the Wood, perhaps, and then Thunder Gulch ran a desultory 4th in the Bluegrass after winning the Florida Derby.
Right, but those days are gone. As Orb proved, and as Barbaro proved, and as Big Brown proved.
Yep.
Now it's 5 weeks, and everybody loves it.
Yep. All right, there you go. I'm very proud of doing research, Steve.
You know what? I'm proud of you too.
Thank you. It's not often I do actual work around here. Steve, let's turn to the second jewel of the Triple Crown. This is our Preakness show. Tell us about the new shooters in the Preakness, about the Kentucky Derby, also rounds who might be dangerous, and can any of them defeat Orb?
Well, the main new shooter is Departing, and now we've got the Claiborne angle back in there with Claiborne and Phipps and Janney. And we don't know how good Departing is, but he could be a very live horse. It would be very ironic if the horse that won the Kentucky Derby got stopped in his Triple Crown quest by the Illinois Derby winner, which considering the fact that the Illinois Derby was completely shunned by Churchill Downs and not given any points as a Derby prep and had to become a Preakness prep instead. But we don't we don't know how good this horse is, but he's shown a lot of ability. Governor Charlie, we don't know. By the time you see this, I'm sure we'll know one way or the other whether Bob Baffert will run him or not. He's only had the 3 starts. Talk about layoffs. He'll go into this race off an 8-week layoff from the Sunland Park Derby. And Wayne Lucas is going to run Titletown 5 along with Will Take Charge and Oxbow. So he's going to have 3 in there. And Wayne loves the Preakness, as we all know. Yeah. And as far as the also rounds who might be dangerous, you have to go back and watch the race. A horse like Oxbow, who I've been, both of us actually have liked him for quite a while, and I still refuse to give up on this horse. He's just had one bad post after another, whether it's too far on the outside or too far on the inside now. But listen, he was the only horse who really was anywhere near that ridiculously torrid pace that Palace Malice set that was in the top 5 at the finish. So I think Gary Stevens, again, I think he learned a little bit more about the horse, and I think shortening him up, I think he's going to be dangerous. Will Take Charge. You watch that race. He's moving stride for stride with Orb. It looks like they're going to run 1-2. And I can't see any other result other than both of them finishing on the wire together unless Will Take Charge completely collapsed. But watch the way he's moving. And then he runs right up into Verrazano, and he's got it steady, and he's a 17 hands horse, and you cannot steady a horse that big, and he just couldn't get going again. Whether he can come back and win the Preakness.
He earned John Cord a ticket to the sidelines after that move.
Yes, there was a jockey change. And the other new shooter that I'm really watching very closely is My Loot. He's got the Rosie factor. She's returning home to Maryland. She's very excited. She's tweeting all over the place. and My Loot, you watch his race. he was 2 lengths behind Orb when Orb made his move, and he finished right about the same thing, about 2 or 3 lengths behind him. Took the widest route, was way out in the middle of the track. He was running over that chewed up section of the track, while Orb actually drifted in a bit and got off of that section of the racetrack. And he was right there. He was just beating a couple of photos for second, and I just think that that he could be a very interesting horse. I know Tom Amoss is going to have him. He's going to have him a lot closer to the pace this time. He's not going to be that far back. So those are some of the ones that some of the others that I think could be kind of interesting coming back off the Derby.
Orb is not scaring anybody off. Looks like a full field for the Preakness. So a lot of fun in Baltimore. Before we get to our Preakness picks, everyone knew that the demise of Hollywood Park was coming. It's like having an old dog whose days are numbered, but when it dies, it's still a shock anyway. Hollywood Park is so full of history and memories, especially for those of us lucky enough to have been regulars there. It announced it's shutting its doors for good this December, and very much saddens anybody who is a part of Hollywood Park. Personally, I love that place. It was my hometown track for many years, even though it's become more of a dump with each passing year of neglect from Churchill Downs and then Bay Meadows Land Company. We'll certainly get into this topic more as the end grows nearer, but I do want to acknowledge its impending passing now that they've made it official, and it's just too bad, really, for racing. All right, Steve, now that your boy Overanalyze is skipping the Preakness, who are you jumping over to in your Preakness prediction?
We're starting on that Mamba thing again, all right? All right. I'll accept it.
He wasn't
Look,
last.
At this point, I can't go against Orb. I mean, he just looks too good. When the day comes, I'm sure I'll be betting some horses that look like overlays. I'm going to probably bet 1 or 2 of the Lucas horses, and I'll definitely will bet my loot, put them in the and departing in the, or put them in trifectas and exactas, but everything has to be centered around Orb. Maybe it's because I want it, and I want a horse like this trying for the Triple Crown, but after what he's done so far, the way he worked Monday morning, worked 47 and won, galloped out 59 and change, looked incredible. So everything is still, he's hitting on all cylinders, so I gotta go with Orb.
I picked Orb and Oxbow as my picks in the Derby, so I'm only a half-wit. I'm going to pick Orb, and we'll take charge in an exacta box. Anybody who goes back and looks at that race will take charge. You know, coming back on 2 weeks, I like it because he only ran about 3/16 of a mile in the Derby, and he looked like he was going to be right with Orb coming down the lane. I'm going to give Will Take Charge a big shot here if he can run back to the way he was moving in that race.
And don't forget second race back off an 8-week layoff too.
Yeah, and again, he laid back early. He really didn't get a chance to run very far in that race, so I don't think it would have taken a lot out of him. Stable Boy, you did get third with the Revolutionary in the Derby. We have tried to give you a primer here over who is actually running in the Preakness. Now that you have that vital information, give us your Preakness pick.
I was watching Revolutionary during the race, and he came from almost at the very end of the pack, but behind him was My Loot, and like Steve said, My Loot had to run past all those horses, ran wide, and he was in the photo for third with Revolutionary. But yeah, I'm gonna go with My Loot.
Wow.
Orb behind Orb, of course.
2 weeks ago, Steve, Stable Boy thought My Loot was 2 words, so he's learned a lot about the horse since then. We want to thank our viewers. We want to thank our sponsor, Darby Dan Farm, who stands Preakness winner Shackelford, and also the sire of the Derby runner-up, Steve. Perfect Soul.
Yes.
Okay.
What about him?
Following along with the Triple Crown schedule, we will be back with you in 3 weeks. 3 weeks, that's June 5th. Steve and I, hopefully Stable Boy, will be live from Belmont Park and the Belmont Stakes, and there could be an awful lot of excitement going on right around then. Until then, have a great Preakness, everybody. Steve, have a great time.
Take care, everyone.